Hey, all, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Vashi Sayer, and you're tuned into another episode of All the Things where we literally talk about all the things. So in today's episode, we're just going to address what's happening in the world right now. And Vice President Kamala Harris, she's getting a lot of heat right now. So backstory, which, I mean, she's getting a lot of heat for many reasons, but backstory in 2019, and then in February 2020, she wrote on Facebook that Trump's border wall is a complete waste of taxpayer money and won't make us any safer. So these are very bold statements. And obviously, I'm not going to be one to sit here and be like, oh, how silly is she to make such a statement like that? And now she's flip-flopping. Here's the thing. We obviously, as humans, will make certain strong, bold statements initially and then realize in the long run, maybe that wasn't smart. And I think that's why it's very wise to take the approach of being quick to listen and slow to speak. And two, being that Kamala Harris is running for the Democratic Party and is for the Democratic Party, she will side with what the Democrats want. And at that time, and still to present day, they do not want the wall for the most part. And we're opposing Trump's stance for the wall. They called him Hitler. They called him everything in the books. You name it, they called him that. So, you know, Kamala Harris recently, and when I say recent, within the past couple of days, made a statement and announced that if she's elected as president, she pledged to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on the wall along the southern border, a project, like I said, she once opposed and called un-American during Trump's administration. So she's completely eating her words. And here's the thing. You will have your own opinions on the wall, just as I have my own opinion on the wall. And quite frankly, I do believe, and I mean, I'm a foreigner. I grew up, born and raised in Belize. However, I see no issue with foreigners in and out different countries as long as it's done legally. The matter of fact is the wall is to protect the American people from foreigners who are trying to infiltrate and come into the country illegally. Trump never once said while he was running and running again, that he hates foreigners, doesn't want to have to do anything with foreigners. I mean, for crying out loud, his wife is not a white American. But the whole idea behind the wall is protecting United States citizens. It's protecting those who have jobs. It's in short, job security, protection against criminals, because a lot of these individuals who are jumping the border and coming illegally, I'll take that back, not a lot, but some of these illegals that are coming in, they have a rap sheet. And I mean, I have a daughter. I don't want a criminal living next door to me. And I mean, we could have criminals either way. But what I'm saying is that wall sort of provides a protection and removes the ability for criminals, thieves, druggies, and the list goes on from infiltrating America. And it also secures their job as an American. So despite years of terrible propaganda, journalists are claiming there's no border crisis. People have demanded border security that now Harris has had to reverse course, and she will bring border security to the disastrous border emergency she herself has created. I mean, it's wild. And it just shows from on a grander scheme that you have to be careful with the promises that you make. You have to be careful with the things that you stand for, because sometimes you will have to humble yourself and reverse and flip and appear to flip flop. You just have to be careful, because at the end of the day, she essentially is doing exactly what Trump wanted to do. That's just it. I mean, the Democrats aren't going to admit that. They're not going to admit that at all. But she's essentially she is or wanting to do what Trump wanted to do when he was running for presidency. It's just really sad, honestly. It's really sad that someone else making these statements is getting praised and glorified, and oh yes, security at our borders, and the person that originally wanted to do this is deemed as evil and racist and Hitler-esque and has this dictatorship personality. And, you know, you ridicule individuals when it was his idea from the get-go. But anyways, it is what it is. It's the name of the game when it comes to politics. You say what you want to say initially, and then you go back against your word. And it's just humble pie, to be honest. And I hope that the individual that gets voted into presidency does the right thing. I know what I stand for. I know what I believe in. I'm against abortion. I do believe in protection of the United States. I am against the LGBTQ agenda. I love the individuals. I hate the sin, and I will always stand by that. So if the president that is elected is in alignment with my belief system, yay. If they're not, then we got some heavy praying to do as Christians. But that's a topic for another time. I definitely want to do an episode on how to vote, who to vote for, and how to determine who to vote for. So Every Life is America's pro-life diaper and wipes company. My family absolutely loves them. There's no harsh toxins. There's no chemicals. It's perfectly safe for your little one. We love Every Life, their mission, their vision, everything about them. Use my code VASHTY10 for 10% off your first order. That is VASHTY10 for 10% off your first order. Well, the next thing I wanted to talk about, which I think is very interesting, is Mark Zuckerberg says the White House pressured Facebook to censor COVID-19 content. Now, for those of you who are conspiracy theorists who are against COVID and against the whole propaganda that the Biden administration pushed during the 2020 era, I'm with you. I'll just simply say I'm with you. So my husband and I and a couple of our good friends, we all understood that there was propaganda behind the entire COVID-19 push, the vaccines, and I'll probably get flagged for this. But now Mark Zuckerberg is coming clean and he's admitting, hey, I was essentially forced into censorship. And he claims that he was pressured by the U.S. government to censor posts about COVID on Facebook and Instagram during the pandemic. And I don't think there's much censorship right now regarding COVID because it's not that big of a deal anymore. But I remember during COVID, like the heat of it, if you even shared any type of COVID content that was against COVID or against the vaccine, you'll get a little flag. Are you sure you want to share this content? This content may be against what is actually true, or I don't know the actual phrase, but you know what I'm saying. And I'm sure for those of you who are pro-conservative or are lean more towards the conservative side and believe that the COVID-19 and the vaccines were a propaganda push from the Biden administration, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And I'm sure you experienced it yourself whenever you try to share any type of information regarding it. But Mark Zuckerberg said that the White House officials, Joe Biden administration, repeatedly pressured Meta, and this is the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, and they repeatedly asked and basically commanded them to censor certain COVID-19 content. And I think this is quite interesting. Biden accused, and this is in the news reports, in 2020 U.S. presidential election campaign, Biden accused social media platforms such as Facebook of killing people by allowing disinformation about coronavirus vaccines to be posted on its platforms. So here we are claiming that the reason why people died was because of the coronavirus vaccines, disinformation or misinformation being posted on these platforms. Honestly, I would wager to say that the reason why so many people did pass away, sadly, so many people passed away from COVID was because of the information that was being pushed. And I personally believe that that was the agenda from the get-go. Population control, trying to test to see how far can we go and how far will people go to believe what we're pushing. I mean, for crying out loud, people were, and I don't know, because I really don't follow it as much anymore. It kind of got very, it just got very annoying and repetitive. The what's it called? The booster shots that people would get, and people would honestly post it like a badge of honor. Got my second booster shot. Got my fifth booster shot. Got my 20th booster shot. And I'm probably exaggerating there, but I genuinely don't know how many booster shots are available to the population, but there are quite a bit. And it just felt as if people were celebrating the fact that they were getting boosters after boosters after boosters, yet it doesn't stop COVID. People were still getting COVID. People were still passing away. Here, the Biden administration is blaming Mark Zuckerberg and his organization for not censoring enough, when in reality, there was heavy censorship. People were manipulated and believed they needed these vaccines, and now we have long-lasting effects. Individuals who have gut issues for, unfortunately, the rest of their lives. People who have the craziest side effects. There's studies that are being censored today, studies that are being hushed and not being released in the news and the media because, hey, we don't want to look like idiots and we don't want the people to point fingers, but there are studies out there that are proving that these vaccines are causing young individuals to have heart attacks and die on the spot, to have these random issues popping up in their lives. They're completely healthy individuals, and suddenly they have all these different issues. But Mark Zuckerberg is coming clean, and he's talking about how he was required to censor. And he even mentions that if he can go back in time, he would not compromise his content. He would not compromise those that wanted to speak up and speak out about what was actually happening. Now, I get it. Both sides have their own agenda, but for the most part, the Republicans do side with doing the right thing. Now, there is corruption on both ends of the spectrum. The Republicans, Democrats, they have to do what they want. They have to do what they have to do to get votes. However, when it came to the coronavirus, COVID-19, and all the agenda propaganda that was pushed, I do believe the majority of Americans bought into a lie. And in order to not look like an idiot, we're still living that lie. I mean, I don't see much people wearing masks anymore, but I do see a couple here and there wearing masks. And I mean, this might sound pretty crass, but my husband and I always said, like, if you can smell a fart while wearing jeans, how does a mask protect you? And my husband working in industrial for years, he knew of the N95 masks because he sold those to industrial plants. And still at those industrial plants, individuals who were working there wearing those N95 masks that are supposed to protect you from all these chemicals and breathing in all these different types of like harsh chemicals to your body. These same individuals are dying from lung cancer, these odd different types of cancers. Why? Because it doesn't work. The N95 mask, again, another part of the propaganda, was pushed. Let's see how much we can control society. Let's see how much we can control them to believe what we are claiming works, what we are claiming is actually happening in the United States. Now, I'm not saying that this sickness wasn't real. I do believe that this sickness was real. However, I personally believe it was a glorified flu. Because suddenly, in the 2020 year, if you look at the reports, in the 2020 year, the flu vanished. It was non-existent. No one, barely anyone had the flu. Everyone had COVID-19. Everyone was dying. Everyone was at risk. Everyone had to be 6 feet apart and wear a mask. And the flu no longer existed. Suddenly, it just evaporated out of thin air. It was like, poof, gone. No more flu. We don't have that anymore. It doesn't exist. Propaganda. Don't you just love propaganda and all that government and politics has to bring and provide? But anyways, I love that Mark Zuckerberg's coming out, being honest, telling the people what actually happened, what he had to do, and admits that if he can reverse and go back in time, he would vote for and go for and stand for freedom of speech. And that's what his platform was originally created for, connecting with people and have that freedom to speak as you will. So 7 Weeks is America's pro-life coffee. It's premium coffee delivered right to your doorsteps. All roast available, and it's absolutely delicious. Start your morning off with 7 Weeks coffee. It's not just drinking coffee, it's drinking coffee with a purpose. Use my code VASHTY10 for 10% off your first order. That is VASHTY10 for 10% off your first order. That's it for today's episode. I'll have all the links in the description, and I do highly advise you to do your research and don't take things at face value. Do your research. I can't stress that enough. But that's it for today. Like, share, do all the things, and I will see y'all next time.